The polished floor of the grand hall gleamed under the cold light of Argoni's prime, reflecting the unyielding, militaristic architecture that surrounded Marcus Kane. He moved with deliberate ease, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the towering armored guards flanking the corridor. Diplomacy demanded a calm facade, and Marcus had perfected his over the years. He nodded politely to a passing alien dignitary, his every step measured, but his senses sharp, cataloging every detail of his surroundings. Inside, Marcus wasn't at ease. The Zyvrak Empire didn't do peace. They didn't respect treaties, alliances, or compromise. Their history was one of relentless expansion, crushing weaker species under their boots. Humanity had entered this stage late, long after the Zyvrak had established dominance, but Earth's neutral stance had kept it largely unnoticed. Until now. The meeting room was a sprawling chamber filled with alien delegates. At the head of the table sat Lord Kravix, an imposing figure with glistening silver scales and predatory yellow eyes. Marcus bowed slightly, acknowledging the host. His movements were deliberate, calculated, and confident, but he could feel Kravix studying him, as if dissecting his every gesture for weakness. Ambassador Kane. Kravix's voice was smooth but laced with venom. We are pleased that humanity has finally decided to engage directly with the Empire. A sign of wisdom, perhaps? Marcus offered a polite smile, his tone neutral. Wisdom often begins with understanding. Humanity values peace and cooperation. The exchange that followed was perfunctory, almost theatrical. Kravix spoke of shared interests and mutual benefits, but Marcus could hear the undertones of dismissal and control. The Zyvrak weren't here to negotiate. They were measuring him, probing for vulnerabilities. Marcus's eyes darted to a Zyvrak guard at the far corner of the room. The way the alien's hand rested near his weapon wasn't protocol, it was anticipation. His attention shifted back to Kravix, who wore an insincere smile. Subtle details, ones most diplomats would miss, stood out to Marcus like glaring alarms. This wasn't just posturing. Something was off. As the meeting dragged on, Marcus let his focus waver outwardly, leaning back in his chair as though growing tired of the dialogue. In truth, he was mapping exits, calculating distances, and studying the behavior of everyone present. His mind shifted into patterns he hadn't relied on in years. Marcus Kane, the diplomat, was merely a role. The man beneath the suit was something far more dangerous, something the Zyvrak could never anticipate. A lifetime ago, Marcus had been a Black Ops operative, trained in the art of assassination and subterfuge. He had faked his death years ago, tired of the blood and shadows, and had chosen the quieter life of a diplomat. But habits ingrained through years of training and survival never truly faded. Kravix's words faded into the background as Marcus studied the room further. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably whenever humanity's neutral stance was brought up. Were they complicit? Or simply too afraid of the Empire to object? He noted the slightest flicker of unease on the face of a Zyvrak aide when Kravix leaned forward to emphasize the Empire's commitment to partnership. By the time the meeting ended, Marcus was certain of one thing: this was no diplomatic gathering. It was a trap. Later, alone in his quarters, Marcus reviewed the day's events. The Zyvrak's overt politeness was a mask, hiding their disdain and darker intentions. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts, signaling a secure message on his communicator. Opening it, he found an invitation from Kravix for a private dinner, a gesture framed as a way to discuss true partnership. The tension in Marcus's shoulders didn't ease. A private dinner wasn't hospitality, it was a controlled environment. It was too soon to confirm, but he had a gut feeling the Zyvrak knew more about him than they should. If so, his past wasn't as buried as he thought. Standing by the window, Marcus gazed out at the vastness of space. The black void dotted with stars was a stark reminder of humanity's precarious position. Earth was small, untested, and new to this stage. Yet humans had one advantage: they were survivors. Marcus had spent his life in the shadows ensuring that survival. His lips pressed into a thin line. He hadn't wanted to be this person again, but the Zyvrak were leaving him no choice. The private dining chamber was dimly lit, the warm hues of alien bioluminescent decor failing to disguise the tension hanging in the air. Marcus sat at the long, curved table, every muscle in his body coiled and ready despite the calm demeanor he projected. Across from him, Lord Kravix was all smiles, his predatory eyes gleaming as servants brought out platters of exotic dishes. "Ambassador Kane," Kravix began, his tone almost fatherly, "I hope you don't find this setting too informal. I believe true alliances are forged over shared meals, not in the stuffy confines of meeting halls." Marcus nodded, his expression neutral. "It's a thoughtful gesture, Lord Kravix. Humanity shares a similar belief about the importance of personal connections." Kravix chuckled, his scaled hands gesturing grandly. "Then let us dispense with the formalities, Tell me, Ambassador, what does humanity truly hope to gain from peace with the Zyrak Empire?" The question was a test. Marcus knew it. He kept his gaze steady, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make Kravix question whether he had underestimated his guest. "Survival," Marcus said at last, his tone calm but deliberate. "We are a young species. Survival is our first and greatest goal." Kravix's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "Ah, but survival is never enough. Surely you aspire to more. Influence, resources, perhaps power?" Marcus allowed the faintest hint of a smile to touch his lips. "Power is relative, Lord Kravix. For now, survival suffices." The tension between them thickened, even as the room remained outwardly cordial. Marcus's instincts were on edge. Kravix's words were bait, meant to draw out some sign of weakness or overconfidence. But it wasn't just the conversation that unsettled Marcus. The subtle movements of the guard station near the exits, the faint vibration beneath his chair that suggested concealed machinery activating, these were the signs he couldn't ignore. As the dinner progressed, Kravix's tone shifted. The veneer of politeness began to crack, revealing a sharper edge. He spoke of the Zyrak Empire's long history of dominance, of its ability to guide younger species toward their full potential. His words carried the thinly veiled threat that compliance was humanity's best, and only, option. Marcus played his part well, nodding politely, offering measured responses that revealed nothing of his thoughts. But as dessert was served, Kravix leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You've been quite the enigma, Ambassador Kane. A diplomat with no prior record, no history of service before your recent appointment. It's almost as if you materialized from thin air." The air in the room seemed to chill. Marcus met Kravix's gaze, his voice steady. "Diplomacy is about results, not resumes." Kravix's smile returned, but this time it was razor sharp. "Indeed. And yet, results are only meaningful when backed by strength. I wonder if humanity has that strength." At that moment, the lights flickered, and the faint hum Marcus had felt earlier grew louder. Before he could react, the guards moved in unison, their weapons drawn and aimed directly at him. Marcus remained seated, his hands resting calmly on the table, his face a mask of composure. "You'll forgive the dramatics, Ambassador," Kravix said, rising from his seat. "But I'm afraid our patience with humanity has run thin. You see, we've uncovered certain inconsistencies about you. Perhaps you'd care to enlighten us before this evening concludes." Marcus allowed himself a small sigh, leaning back in his chair. "I could," he said slowly, his tone almost conversational. "But I don't think you'd enjoy the explanation." Kravix tilted his head, confusion flickering across his face for the briefest moment. It was all Marcus needed. In a blur of motion, Marcus flipped the table, using it as a shield against the first barrage of plasma shots. The heavy wood slammed into one guard, sending him sprawling, as Marcus darted toward the nearest attacker. His movements were fluid, honed by years of training. Within seconds he had disarmed one guard, using the alien's own weapon to incapacitate another. The room erupted into chaos. Kravix shouted orders, his earlier smugness replaced by rage, but Marcus was already ahead of him. He moved like a shadow, his blows precise and lethal. In less than a minute, the guards lay unconscious or worse, their weapons scattered across the floor. Kravix, now alone, backed toward the wall, his confidence shattered. What are you? He hissed, his voice trembling. Marcus approached slowly, his expression unreadable. Humanity's survival isn't just a goal, he said softly. It's what we've been doing for thousands of years. And we're very, very good at it. Before Kravix could respond, Marcus struck, a single calculated blow that left the Zyvrak Lord crumpled on the floor. Marcus stepped over him, retrieving a data tablet from the wreckage of the room. A quick scan revealed encrypted files detailing the Zyvrak's plans, a full-scale invasion of Earth, to be justified by claims that humanity had sabotaged the negotiations. Marcus's jaw tightened. They hadn't just targeted him, they planned to destroy everything humanity had built. But now, he had the evidence to expose them. As he slipped out of the chamber, avoiding the reinforcements rushing to the scene, Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. They had underestimated him. And that was their first mistake. The corridor was silent, but Marcus could feel the pulse of the station around him, subtle vibrations from its power core, the faint hum of machinery, and the muffled footsteps of patrols. His movements were fluid and deliberate, slipping through the shadows like a ghost. The Zyvrak might have thought they had contained him, but Marcus had spent years mastering environments far less forgiving than this. The stolen data tablet from Kravix's chamber was his guide. Its encrypted files had taken minutes to crack, revealing the blueprints of Argonis Prime and a schedule of patrol routes. The Zyvrak, in their arrogance, had centralized their invasion plans in a command hub on the lower levels. That arrogance would be their undoing. Marcus reached an access panel, its sleek surface illuminated with alien symbols. From a pouch, he retrieved a small device, human ingenuity in the form of a compact multitool. Within seconds, the panel was bypassed, granting him access to a restricted maintenance shaft. He slipped inside, letting the hatch close silently behind him. As he descended, the reality of what he had uncovered weighed on him. The Zyvrak weren't just planning an invasion, they had fabricated evidence that humanity was developing a galactic superweapon. It was the perfect pretext to rally other species to their cause. The subtle manipulation was almost impressive, if it hadn't been a direct threat to Earth's survival. The shaft ended near the command hub, where Marcus paused, listening. Faint voices and the shuffle of movement echoed through the ventilation grates. The Zyvrak were here in force, but they had no idea what was coming. Marcus took a deep breath. This wasn't just survival, it was strategy. The Zyvrak couldn't be allowed to execute their plans, and Marcus needed more than just their files. He needed leverage, chaos, and fear. He moved swiftly, planting small devices along the corridor. Compact explosives, designed not for destruction but for maximum disruption. A few seconds of misdirection could be the difference between success and failure. He placed the last charge near a power conduit and retreated to a concealed alcove. The detonation was sharp but controlled. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and shouts erupted from the command hub as the Zyvrak scrambled to respond. Marcus moved with precision, slipping through the confusion and into the hub. The room was a hive of activity, alien officers barking orders, technicians scrambling to stabilize systems, and guards scanning for threats. Marcus ignored them, his focus on the central console where holographic displays projected the invasion plans in terrifying detail. The Empire's fleet was already mobilizing, with Earth as its primary target. A guard moved toward his position, and Marcus acted without hesitation. A quick strike to the neck sent the alien crumpling silently to the floor. He dragged the body into the shadows, then turned his attention to the console. The interface was alien, but Marcus had studied enough galactic systems to navigate it. His fingers danced across the surface, pulling up schematics, troop deployments, and communications logs. He began transferring everything to a secure drive. Suddenly, a voice barked behind him, and Marcus spun just as a plasma bolt sizzled past his head. The guard had seen him, and the room erupted into chaos as alarms shifted to a more urgent tone. Marcus dropped into a low roll, grabbing the fallen guard's weapon and firing a precise shot that disabled the nearest console. Sparks flew as the room plunged into semi-darkness, the emergency lights casting everything in an eerie red glow. Using the confusion, Marcus moved through the hub, taking out guards methodically. Every shot, every strike was calculated. He left no margin for error. The Zyvrak were formidable in numbers, but they relied on brute force and fear, tactics that crumbled against precision and adaptability. As the last guard fell, Marcus approached the central console again. He uploaded a virus into the system, one designed to corrupt the Zyvrak's data and disrupt their fleet's communications. The virus was crude but effective, a reminder of humanity's ability to adapt and outthink even the most advanced opponents. The hub was now in complete disarray, the surviving officers panicked and scattered. Marcus left them to their chaos, slipping into a maintenance tunnel as reinforcements rushed toward the scene. He could hear their shouts, their confusion, and the growing fear that something, or someone, was systematically dismantling their operations. Marcus moved deeper into the station, his next target clear. The Zyvrak ambassador overseeing the invasion plans was stationed in a high-security wing. If Marcus could reach him, he could extract the final piece of evidence needed to expose the Zyvrak's treachery to the Galactic Council. Every step was deliberate, every choice calculated. Marcus was no longer just a diplomat, or even a former assassin. He was something more, a force of nature unleashed against those who had underestimated him, and, by extension, all of humanity. As he approached the ambassador's chambers, Marcus felt a rare flicker of satisfaction. The Zyvrak had gambled on their assumptions, believing humanity to be weak and predictable. They had no idea what they had unleashed. The high-security wing was a fortress within a fortress, but Marcus Kane had never encountered a security system he couldn't dismantle. He bypassed the outer perimeter's biometric scanners with a device clipped to his wrist, a quiet beep signaling his entry. Every motion was precise, every step calculated to avoid detection. The Zyvrak guards patrolled methodically, but their predictability was their weakness. Inside the ambassador's chambers, the air was heavy with the scent of incense, the room illuminated by faint, pulsing blue light from decorative crystals. Marcus observed the space from the shadows, noting the ambassador's posture as he studied a holographic display. This was no warrior but a bureaucrat, a manipulator whose words commanded fleets. Yet Marcus knew better than to underestimate him. Power didn't always reside in brute strength. As the ambassador turned to reach for a control panel, Marcus moved. Within seconds, the ambassador was immobilized, a blade pressed against his throat. "Scream, and it's over," Marcus said softly, his voice devoid of emotion. The ambassador froze, his yellow eyes wide with terror. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" the ambassador hissed, his voice trembling. "More than you realize," Marcus replied. "You've built an empire on fear and deceit, and you've dragged humanity into your game. Now you're going to help me end it." The ambassador's lips curled into a sneer, his fear momentarily replaced by arrogance. "You think killing me will stop this? The invasion fleet is already mobilized. Humanity's fate is sealed." Marcus tightened his grip. "I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to make sure everyone sees the truth." He forced the ambassador to sit, tying him securely to the chair with strips of the room's decorative fabric. From his pouch, Marcus retrieved a small device and attached it to the ambassador's console. The device blinked green, signaling the start of a live broadcast. Marcus activated it, his voice calm but commanding. "This is Marcus Kane, Envoy of Earth. What you're about to hear will reveal the true nature of the Zyvrak Empire and their intentions toward humanity." The ambassador's protests were drowned out by the audio files Marcus played, a recording of Lord Kravix detailing the fabricated evidence against humanity, the staged ambush at the summit, and the plans for invasion. The holographic display projected troop movements and invasion timelines, leaving no doubt about the Empire's betrayal. Across the galaxy, species oppressed by the Zyvrak would see this broadcast. Allies of the Empire would question their loyalty. Chaos wasn't just a weapon, it was a strategy. As the broadcast concluded, Marcus turned to the ambassador. "You've built your power on lies. How does it feel to watch them unravel?" The ambassador's silence was answer enough. Marcus left him bound and gagged, ensuring the Zyvrak couldn't spin this as another manipulation. Moving quickly, Marcus made his way to the station's docking bay. The alarms were deafening now, the Zyvrak fully aware of the breach. Guards flooded the corridors, their shouts echoing through the station. Marcus used the confusion to his advantage, slipping past patrols and planting explosives at key junctions. Each detonation further crippled the station, leaving the Zyvrak scrambling to maintain control. As he reached the docking bay, a squad of heavily armed guards blocked his path. Marcus didn't hesitate. Using a combination of quick thinking and his remaining explosives, he created a diversion, forcing the guards into disarray. The fight that followed was brutal and efficient, Marcus moving like a storm through the chaos. When the last guard fell, he stepped over the bodies, his focus unbroken. The ship he had prepared earlier was waiting, its engines primed for departure. As Marcus climbed aboard, he activated a final command from his wrist device. Across the station, the explosives he had planted earlier ignited in a chain reaction, crippling the Zyvrak's infrastructure and leaving them blind to his escape. As the ship entered hyperspace, Marcus allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The broadcast had been sent. The invasion plans were exposed. Humanity had gained allies in its fight for survival, but Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The Zyvrak would retaliate, and the galaxy would remain a dangerous place. Sitting in the cockpit, Marcus stared out at the vastness of space. His mission was complete, but his work was far from over. For now, humanity had a chance born not of diplomacy but of the strength and resolve that had defined them since the beginning. And Marcus Kane, the diplomat turned hitman, would ensure that humanity's legacy continued, no matter what the galaxy threw at them next.